So you should be able to hear me. I'm going to get started on my presentation here. You people can hear me. Yeah. Now I'm tangled. Okay. So, a manic man in the octagon of life. So essentially I'm going to overview my life story. And I lost my clicker. One sec. I don't think that's doing anything. And yeah, so this is my mental health talk. I'd like to start though with a little plug about Green Shirt Day. Brady, Green Shirt Day starts on April 7th, and essentially it is honoring the Humboldt Broncos and my friend Logan Boulay here, who passed away in that crash. And he was a good friend of mine. That's us at my 16th birthday party. And he registered as a donor before the crash, and he saved 6 lives and inspired several people to, like thousands, to sign up as donors. And now we have Green Shirt Day on the 7th to honor that and raise awareness for the Broncos and also organ donor awareness. The next slide here is the new book that is out about the Humboldt Broncos I'd like to plug here. This is Caleb Dahlgreen. He is a survivor of the crash, and Logan's in this book, of course. It's a really good story. I'm almost finished it. I got it on the weekend, but I can't put it down. But it's pretty heavy stuff, of course. And Caleb is a survivor and now a speaker, and I've connected with him online a few times, and he's just a really outstanding guy for sure. I talk about Logan and the Broncos. Sorry. Because sometimes in life, you have hard moments. Hard moments that you have to expose yourself to. And one of the things I'm going to talk about today is exposure therapy and how I got over my own trauma, which was not to the extent of this, but it was still pretty heavy. And that leads us to the presentation, which is my life story. Sorry. So I want you to imagine you're it's late at night. It's like 2 a.m. You pick up 5 books to try to read under the night sky, and 2 men in paramedic uniforms just randomly show up in your backyard, and they ask you, "Are you doing okay, son?" And I say, "Of course I'm doing okay. I've never been better in my life. I'm superhuman." And at this point, it's starting to set in that these guys are trying to take me away. And I can see my mom. She's standing on the deck in her white robe. She's concerned. And I'm just out there trying to do some night reading. And these paramedics, they say that they're here to help me out because I'm sick. And I say, "There's no way I'm sick. What's wrong with me?" And my mom said, "If you're so fine, if you're so perfect, then prove it tonight by seeing a doctor." And so up for the challenge, I said, "Sure, I'll go see this doctor. I'll go shrink him, this psychiatrist or whatever. I'll prove that I'm better than okay." And when I got there, it seemed like one paramedic was nice and one wasn't. And I got one of them to explain. I explained to one of them that you guys will let me go home after this, right? Like I can like go home. I don't have to go to the hospital. They're like, yeah, sure. But when I got to the hospital, they totally lied, and I was ushered into the emergency wing, seen by a psychiatrist who tried to push 2 blue pills on me. And I was like, "There's no way I'm taking any medication. There's nothing wrong with me." And to prove my sanity, I'm in this cell room with like gray walls and a camera in the corner with a blinking red light. And I'm singing to the camera. Pink Floyd's The Wall of the Opera, singing like, I'm comfortably numb, and Mama or Mother, and all the Pink Floyd songs for you Pink Floyd fans out there. And I had my earbuds in at the time so that you could, so I could hear the opera or the album. And I'm singing it to the camera to show them that there's nothing wrong with me. And of course, they come in and take my iPod away. because I'm not allowed to have music in the secluded room. And then they tell my parents that Jason is definitely very ill. He has bipolar 1 disorder. He's in the middle of a manic episode, and he'll be here for at least a month. And I'd spend 57 days in the hospital at Chinook Regional Hospital here in Lethbridge, or out in Lethbridge. And it would be a long journey to get over being in the hospital. And this is kind of the story of how I got to that hospital moment and how I got over it. And just so you're aware, bipolar 1 disorder is the unusual shifts in energy, activity levels, concentration, and the ability to carry out day-to-day tasks. Moods range from extremely elevated and up, known as manic episodes, to very sad and down, known as depressive episodes. I would experience both. Bipolar 1 is defined as having a severe manic episode with symptoms that include rapid thinking, pressured speech, insomnia, increased energy, grandiose ideas, excessive spending, and substance abuse. All things that would occur in my life during this period. Now, there is a bipolar 2, which is defined as a period pattern of depressive and hypomanic symptoms without a full-blown manic episode. And bipolar 2 is typically not treated with hospitalization, but bipolar 1 usually requires hospitalization, which is me. I like this image because it shows the superhumanness of bipolar 1 disorder and the absolute depths of darkness that can also result in it on the down side of things. So, normal childhood growing up. I was a hockey player. I went to Winston Churchill High School. Don't hold it against me. I had a normal nuclear family. My sister and my mom and dad, they're all still together. And my sister just had a child recently that I get to see this weekend. I'm really excited about. And just wanted to stress, like, I had a very normal childhood. I was good in school. I wanted to be a hockey player when I grew up, but then I realized like I wasn't making the NHL, so I decided to become a teacher instead. And I worked at like Burt and Mac's Source for Sports as like a skate salesman, and then I got a job as bartender and bouncer at a bar in town, and everything was going good. Like, there was nothing to show signs of anything that would go awry in my life. I was on an upward trajectory. And spoiler. But then, you know, after my first year of university, and kind of that first of it, showing signs, it's called hypomania. It's the stage that preludes mania, and it's characterized by like excessive energy, productivity, and it's masked very well because it seems like you can do anything all the time and there's no issues. I was a bartender at the zoo, which is the campus bar at the university. I was taking 5 classes. I was also working at LA Chef's Catering as a server. And I was doing like 5 classes and 2 jobs, working like 20 plus hours and playing intramural hockey at night and doing everything well. I even scored a few goals, if you can imagine that. And I was raising money to go for a trip to Africa to build a school in Africa. It was a $5,000 trip with me to we. And they used to do the Wee Days, and I was really excited about, but I had to fundraise $5,000. That's why I was working so much and still doing the school. But like I said, I was doing everything well. However, one thing I was doing at this time was experimenting with drugs, and I would smoke copious amounts of marijuana regularly, which I'll talk about later. I did try psilocybin, or magic mushrooms as they're commonly referred to, in so we're at December 2016, year 2 of university. I did those in December of 2016, and it was a real glimpse into what mania would be. I have a journal from that night or that day because it lasts like 10 hours, and you can see the parallels between that and what would be my manic journals and stuff. But I wasn't like sick right after that in December. I would go another 6 months or so until we reached July 1st, which is when I tried psychedelic drugs for a second time, this time LSD, a very serious drug. Acid is also known as. And it was like, probably, we don't know for sure if it was the main trigger of mania, but it was one of the triggers for sure. We know that. And it was a real glimpse into what the next 3 months would be in my life, which was really hard. So that was July 1st to celebrate Canada's 150th birthday, 2017. I did that. And like I said, it was a real glimpse into mania. And like as marijuana, someone should have seen the signs. Like I was never like this chill stoner that just zoned out and ate chips all the time. I'd be like super hyper every time I did the drug. Like I'd be like elevated and like talking fast, and it was just like a glimpse into what mania would be. And anyways, like after I took LSD, it was about 2 weeks later, I'd be in Africa. And in Africa, I was there for 16 days, and I would be in a full-blown manic episode while in Africa, away from my parents, family, and friends. It was a service trip with people I'd never met before. And so nobody knew who I was. Nobody knew what normal was and what abnormal was. To highlight this, I had 300 pages of notes in 16 days written, 2+ hours of audio journals, and like I had to buy journals on the side of the road when we stopped one place because I was running out of spaces to write things, because my mind was just firing on all cylinders. Like that first slide, or that earlier slide showed, bipolar 1 mania is characterized as rapid thoughts, fast speech, antagonistic. I was very like fighty with people and angry all the time. I was highly emotional. So the stereotypical bipolar person is like happy one time, then mad, and then sad. And like you'll see in some of the video clips I have that is the case sometimes, but in this case, I was very highly emotional. It's very insomnia. Like I had insomnia, like beyond belief. I'd have like 4 hours of sleep here in Africa. Like late at night, I'd just sneak out of my tent and stargaze and listen to Roger Waters' Pink Floyd concerts on my phone that I downloaded in the airport. And then I would wake up the next morning, like 6 in the morning, to do a hike on 4 hours of sleep. Like it was absolutely bonkers. And I had a lot of grandiose ideas. I had many, 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 many goals. I wanted to create the Wegner Ways Corporation, the Wegner Ways podcast, write the novel called 2084, real original title, and also create 2 charities, get 2 PhDs, become a teacher, run Pink Floyd concerts in Tanzania, Africa, all within a decade. Because I was 20 at this time, so I thought by the age 30, I should be able to accomplish all this. Because most people overestimate what they can do in a day, but people usually underestimate what they can do in a year and vastly underestimate what they can do in a decade. So I think I can achieve all of this in a decade. And I calculated it to the hour, how many hours I had awake left in that decade, which was 57,675 hours awake. Because I'd only need like 5 hours of sleep. I'd be super efficient, all that. And I don't know where I got that number, how I calculated it, but I just remember that number for 57,675. That was how many hours I had left in the decade to achieve all these things. When I got home from Africa, I would have all the manic symptoms, and my parents were genuinely concerned as soon as I got off the plane. And the ride home, I was talking nonstop for over 2 hours, and from Calgary Airport to Lethbridge, and they thought like something was up. The first thing I did when we got home was I went straight to the shed, got my marijuana, smoked up, came back to the dinner table. My dad was so disgusted that he left the table because he was just so ashamed that I couldn't even sit down and have dinner before I had to spark up. And he was really disappointed at that. I didn't care. I had a baseball game that night, the championship game for men's league and softball Valley that same night after getting home from Africa. And so with confidence and vigor, I approached the baseball game, told all my friends about my trip. They didn't really care. I was talking in like Swahili and being really confusing and like talking a mile a minute. In the 6th inning, I took a nap because I was so tired. And by the 7th inning, it was my turn to come up bat. There's a runner on third, runner on first, 2 outs, and I knocked the winning run home. Big championship, one of my crowning moments. Just kidding. But anyways, what would happen with the manic symptoms, and I'd be manic for 3 months, and it'd be characterized by rapid thinking, pressured speech, insomnia, and increased energy, grandiose ideas, like I said. I'd spend a lot of money. I bought a stereo from Denmark, and had it shipped to the States, where I would almost get lost in the States. And yeah, like I spent like thousands of dollars, drained all my savings during this time, moved out of my parents' house to the squalor of a place that I was in with liquor bottles, Wonder Bread, and pizza boxes. And like, that was my life at that time, was just stuff everywhere, chaotic. I moved in with a buddy who was a slob, Rob the slob, I'd call him. And I became a slob, and my parents were just appalled when they eventually came to visit me. And I like paid 3 months rent up front because I didn't want to have to worry about money. Really terrible strategy. And so I drained my bank account within like 2 weeks, like about a month. And substance abuse, like I was abusing marijuana. I was drinking quite a bit, more so the marijuana use. And I had a few more tabs of acid that I was preparing to take. Thankfully, I never did. But on the next slide here, I think we have a little snippet. Yes. Okay. So this video kind of ties to this earlier slide here. I'll just wait here, Jamie, for a sec. What you see here is my day called the Vow of Silence. Nobody was listening to me. I was posting numerous points on social media like Twitter and Instagram and Snapchat and Facebook, and just like word vomiting everything I could think of. And I would be fired from both my jobs at LA Chefs and the zoo within like a matter of days. One was for almost punching a groom on his wedding night, but we can tell that story another time. That was pretty wild. And then another one was getting in an argument with a chef over the food waste that we'd have. And anyways, I took this vow of silence campaign. I thought I'd be like the Terry Fox of mental health. I would take a vow of silence for kids around the world, and I'd get lots of attention, and I would just write all over my body instead of speak words, and I'd write everything. So that's why you see all these different hashtags and stuff, like hashtag WW Wagner Ways, hashtag RW Rebel Wagner, hashtag boo, hashtag try again. And every time I'd speak, I'd strike my leg with a pen. That's why I have so many strikes there. And anyways, that's not just my leg. Like when I entered the hospital a few nights later, my arms were covered, my shorts were covered, and my legs. Like I was completely in ink. It was unbelievable. And anyways, my dad took me to McDonald's to have lunch with me, and he was so ashamed, and he was just beyond belief what was going on. But anyways, this next video here is just a little snippet of what I sounded like in Mania. And this was a video I sent to a fellow student at Winston Churchill, who I thought was bullied. Her name was Haley. And I thought I would send her this video before I took the vow of silence and tell her that I was kind of on her team. So at this point, I'll get Mr. Quinton to unmute, and I'll mute myself here. Okay, and I'll play it. Click the slide right here. Click the blue.
Haley, I'm not joking. Is there anybody in there? Hello? I've been a spy the whole time. I've been a sneaky actor the entire time. I found the keys to the kingdom, and I made you a video just for you. I found it. Let me share it before the devil takes it away. That's why I'm wearing glasses. I'm scared. I'm the chosen one. Or am I? Am I just qualifying you right now? So pick up the phone. Seriously. Why are you still watching this video? Close it any time. I'm just playing right now. Literally making my point. Turn off the video. Or enjoy it, because I'm being silly and I haven't talked to you in a while. And you're the only person that I spoke to today, because I'm taking a secret vow of silence. And I want all the drama dudes and all the drama drools to see that I've been on your team the whole time, you dumb.
So mute yourself, Jamie, or Mr. Quinton. Okay, we're back. So that video shows a few things. No, you're good. Oh, yes, you did. Back. I got it. Maybe. You gotta click the screen. There we go. Oh. Okay, click the arrow in the bottom. There you go. Okay. And now one more over. Yeah, right. This is awesome. Okay. Okay. This is being recorded too, so this is awesome. All right. So anyways, that video is showing a few things. It's showing my, the devil's going to take it away from me, some of these grandiose ideas. And that video actually got sent to a completely random person. I didn't have the actual address of that Haley person. And they snapped back like, WTF, like, who is this person? And I got completely blocked, and that person had a very interesting afternoon, I think, because I sent several videos afterwards. But shortly after I took the vow of silence, or a little bit before, it was shortly after, I saw a psychologist, and that is Dr. Carrie Burness in this photo. Not actually, but he actually does look very similar to this, ironically. And what I did was, when I got to this meeting that my parents set up, and they were there as well, is I wanted to make sure that I covered my bases. And so what I did was I put my phone and put it under the desk when no one was looking and hit record. And I actually have this entire conversation that was an hour and 12 minutes recorded on my phone and on my computer and backed up. And it's like a cherished thing because it really shows how ill I was and how all over the place I was with my speech. And basically it was me talking for like over an hour and not letting anyone else get a word in, and coming out of it thinking that I was just this brilliant person, that there's no way there's anything wrong with me. And essentially Dr. Burns, he said to my mom in a card, like, call me immediately afterwards. And he put his pen down within 5 minutes because he knew I was bipolar 1 manic. He didn't tell me because he didn't want to ruin my relationship, because I wouldn't have listened to him anyway. But in hindsight, you can even hear him put his thing on the desk. Like, it's so clear as day that what I was. And a lot of well-meaning people didn't realize how sick I was. But it was Dr. Burns who diagnosed me, and then eventually when I got to the hospital, I would be diagnosed there as well. I do have a few more videos to show you of me in mania, which are really interesting to really show how I sounded at that time, how my speech was, and just the detachment I had from reality. And so buckle in for that. Essentially, after this psychologist meeting, my parents offered to take me back to my West Side house in Lethbridge, the squalor I was living in. And I said, no, I'm meeting a friend for dinner. I'm staying downtown. And I lied. Like, I didn't have dinner plans to anybody, but I wanted to walk downtown. I didn't want to be around my parents. So the next video is me walking downtown Lethbridge, pacing back and forth by the Rainbow Crosswalk by the art gallery. And you can hear some of my speech there. So I'll mute myself here and get Mr. Quinton to unmute the computer. Good. And then
click back over here.
Okay.
See this right there, my watotos, my kids. And if you don't understand why I'm calling you kids, keep thinking. It's literally why I'm doing all of this. I'm trying to be Jay Gamble, I'm trying to be Greg Wolcott, I'm trying to be me. And I just question things. I realized, because Spencer West told me, hey, guess what? Questioning things, you're pretty good at it. You know what, Mr. Blankenstein? Yeah, I went and talked to my grade 6 teacher. Whatever you want to call it, some force just drew us to each other. And I pulled over and I followed up and asked him, hey, Blankenstein, let's chat. I gotta go, but boom, boom. I showed him the real me, and he was so impressed. Because he's like, Jason, you're just being you. And I'm just being me, boo. Because there's nothing to be scared of. You don't have to say boo. You can just bask or run the frig away from me. Because my friends back in Tanzania, my watotos, my rafikis, they miss me, and I miss them a lot. I'm ready to show them that, hey, Lethbridge is... So anyways, yes, whoever the Saunders are that are driving past me right now, just wondering what the hell this kid is doing, walking in the circle. What's his movement pattern? Guess what? My movement pattern is completely erratic. There is no meaning. That's the point. Read Paul Auster. Question everything. Be okay with not being okay, and be okay with being crazy. Why does crazy have to be a bad word? I'm fucking crazy. I'd rather be crazy than lazy like everybody else. That's my message. Hey, I am showing you this awesome crosswalk that some people like to deface sometimes, because I want to show you that, hey, I care. I love you. I kapenda all of you. And yeah, these people are chuckling over here because they think I'm crazy talking to imaginary people from Snapchat. That's okay. Sonder on. Bye-bye. Kwaheri. Well, you know what I'm saying Kwaheri to? Kwaheri to the haters. Kwaheri to the people that don't want to listen to my message. So I'm ready to speak to the minority. The niche that's going to make a difference.
Okay, so a few things there. Imagine that you're that person that pulled up to that crosswalk. You're at the red light, and this person's just pacing back and forth, Snapchatting away, and just like they would have thought for sure that I was on crack cocaine or any kind of drug. I was completely sober at that point. It was just my illness. It was the mania. I was sober because I had just come from that appointment. And what happened next was I continued ranting. This video goes on for like 40 minutes. I just gave you a 2-minute clip. But I was broadcasted to everyone on Snapchat. My sister saw it. She was really concerned. She calls my parents. Why would you leave Jason downtown Lethbridge? Like, what is going on? And my parents are trying to track me down. What I do is I continue the video and I see a stranger down the street. And I recognize him from my days at the bar. And I saw him around campus. He was a karaoke superstar. And I like singing too. So I said, you know what? I'm going to show people on Snapchat that you can make friends with anybody at any time. And I walked up to him and I said, like, hey, what's your name? And he said his name was Tim. And I said, Tim, I'd love to show everybody you can make friends with anybody anytime. He's like, sure, yeah, I'll be in your video. And he was a really nice guy. And yeah, he said, well, hey, you know what? There's karaoke tonight. Let's go. And I said, all right, let's do it. And we drove and he stopped at the gas station to pick up some gas. And I thought, what a better way to start a friendship than paying for this guy's tank of gas. So I paid for his gas. I had no money at the time, but swipe on the credit card. And he thought that was awesome. He's like, you know what? Maybe instead of karaoke, we go back to my place and smoke up. Like, you smoke a reefer or whatever? I'm like, oh, yeah, I'm ready. And he essentially said that he would he had the best stuff in the city and that it would knock me out. And he knocked me out. It did. I actually experienced what everyone risks when they smoke marijuana, which is psychosis. Psychosis is this detachment from reality, and like I nearly passed out with it. I smoked it up and some of his pot, and I saw this vision of like orange and yellow and red. I can still see it to this day. And like Tony Robbins was there, and what I thought Jesus might look like, and Oprah. Like, just I don't know why Oprah, but saw this vision, and I was like down for the count. He's like, "Are you okay, man? Are you okay?" And I said, I need to go home. And well, thankfully, this was a really nice, like, Christian guy who just drove me home. And that was kind of the end of the night. But it almost ends there. But I was so distraught about how I thought people may have treated this Tim guy. And so I continued my video until my phone died. And this is a little bit more. The last video I'll show that demonstrates me in highly irregular times, for sure. So yeah, just go ahead and click the next slide. Okay, and then I'll mute myself. You unmute. Okay, and you can press play on the video.
Might as well do a nightly reflection, because I feel like I'm in Tanzania. I feel like I'm in Arizona. I feel like I'm 100% sober. I'm just woke. Hashtag woke. Whatever hashtag you want, you silly watotos. And yeah, I'm talking about you adult. You silly adult who just doesn't want to have fun. I was so scared tonight because I met a really, really cool guy who everybody's just didn't even want to talk to. Everybody's just a bully to this kid. Well, I'm sick of bullies. I'm not afraid to say it.
Okay, that video really shows me highly emotional, like I'm crying at one point, I'm angry at the other point, and it's just this roller coaster. And I did that video for an hour until my phone died, and I thought, well, I'll charge it and just go on with my day or my night. This is like 2 a.m. And I thought, what better way to finish the night off than cleaning up this world? So I'm going to clean up the neighborhood. So what I did was I got out in the back alley, started picking up trash, putting it in a bag, and I started like creeping around people's backyards and fixing things and cleaning up their backyard because there's trash, like highly irregular. Imagine it's 3 a.m. and you see someone creeping around your backyard. Like that was me. And I was just helping. I was just fixing things and tidying up the neighborhood, just like I did in Tanzania on the job site. And when I got home, my phone was charged. I had like multiple texts from my dad. It said, Jason, where are you? At like 11 o'clock. Jason, we're worried about you at 12 o'clock. And at like 3:30, he wrote like hashtag worried about my son. So yeah, it was a tough night because he was pretty worried about me for sure. And what happened next was, can you just click on the purple? Okay. Shortly thereafter, we arrive at the prologue, this opening story that I gave you of my parents got me home for one night because I came back to the north side of town and thought I'd hang out with a buddy, and they were not really having much of me because I was acting so regular. So I went back to my parents' place, tried to sleep it off, and that's when the ambulance was called, and these paramedics show up in my backyard and take me to the hospital, and I'm talking to the camera and all that stuff. And then I was wheeled away into the acute psychiatry ward for 57 days. And for the first 14, I was refusing treatment because you're allowed to refuse treatment for the first 14 days, and then you go to trial. And essentially, I was refusing medication because I didn't believe anything was wrong with me. And right before the trial, I said, I don't need a lawyer. I know my story better than anybody. I'm going to fight this and I'm going to win. And so I'm like, nobody's listening to me. So I'll take another vow of silence and show right to the panel and show them that I'm sane and there's nothing wrong with me. So what I did was I like jacked myself up. I'm playing AC/DC Thunderstruck, and while I'm walking up to the panel room, and when I get there, they give me a piece of paper, and I'm writing like furiously trying to scribble out my entire story. They gave me 4 sheets of paper. I wrote on like front, back, all within 10 minutes. And then when I got to like, can I have another piece of paper? They're like, no, I think we've got enough of what we need. And it was a Board of Health member, the head nurse, my psychiatrist. My parents were there just for support, and then a community health member. And within an hour, I got my feedback from them. It was just a slip of paper that said, denied approval for release, written reasons to follow. And then my nurse explained to me that we can legally inject medication on you now, so get ready to take that tonight. And I was pretty upset, but I thought like, maybe if there's one more divine intervention and one more sign that could show me that I don't deserve to get this treatment, then I'll do it. And essentially, I tongue-in-cheek my medication, spit it out, and the nurse walked over to the trash can after I did that, looked inside, and then said, Jason, do you want to take your medication orally, or are we going to inject you with a needle? I said, no needles. I'll submit. I'll surrender. And that's when I started to get better, was when I finally took the medication. But it wasn't an instant fix. I almost like set the hospital on fire because I was like playing with my light fixture in my room. I like took like I thought there's like a light on our panel here, like on the light switch, and so I took it apart with my pencil. I like MacGyvered it, like used it as a screwdriver, my pencil, and unscrewed it and was like playing with the wires, and it like made a spark and like kind of a little flame. And I was like packed my bags, ready to escape the hospital. Then something was telling me like, this is a terrible idea. I shouldn't do this. And that's when the security walked in and like told the nurses, and I got in big trouble, got sent to the solitary room. And so it was an instant fix, but and I got like home visits once I started taking medication to reintegrate into society. I did recreational therapy, group therapy. It was all really positive experience, but I was in the acute psychiatry ward, and then there's the psychiatry ward. So I was like in the severest of severe cases. And so I wasn't allowed to mix with too many patients for a while. And like I said, almost 2 months in the hospital. But then I got released on, I think, October 17th. So I entered, or no, it would have been October 28th or something like that. So I entered in on September 1st. So again, timeline, I'm 20 years old. I take LSD on July 1st, 2017, in Africa, July 14th to 2 weeks later. And then not until September 1st am I in the hospital. And not until September 14th do I start taking medication. And then I get out of the hospital like around the end of October. And what happened next was severe depression for 7 months. Now, thankfully, I was never suicidal. This was kind of a big thing for me because my uncle, Uncle Jeff, he wanted to be a teacher, and he was, I think, 27. And when he had a lot of problems with identity and drugs and addictions, but when he learned he was bipolar, he committed suicide a week later after finding out he was bipolar. So the depression really hit him, and he couldn't handle it, and he took his life, unfortunately, and we really miss him. But thankfully, I was never in that dark of a space. But depression for me was really characterized by 7 months of it. Lethargy, so I was really lethargic and not wanting to do anything, get out of bed. That's me with my cat. Feeling very down or low. Like I just felt very like sad all the time. And then, sorry, just gonna like click all of them at once here. Oh yeah, that's what I thought. Back. You just scroll back one slide, Mr. Quinn. Oh, there we go. So it was somewhat doing things for the first time was really hard. I every time I went to the friends for the first time, or went for a walk, like I was just exhausted. And I did try to go back to school. I just tried 3 classes. My psychologist said, take 3 interesting classes that you love. I took 3 classes that I hated, and it was a terrible experience. I was in management at that time, and I totally switched my degree after taking those 3 terrible classes. But it was somewhat masked. Not everybody knew I was depressed. Not everybody knew I'd been in the hospital. I didn't really talk about it. And then I had like massive weight gain. When I entered the hospital, I was 175 pounds. A year and a half later, I was 252 pounds, like standing. Like it was a lot. Gained a lot of weight from the medication. The medication took a year, about 10 months to get right. Took 22 different medication changes and adjustments in 10 months. And the next slide here is just me explaining if you can spot the difference. I'll pause here, see if you can spot the difference. It's enough pausing. On the left, we have my dad's heart medication. He had a heart attack in 2011. And on the right, you have my bipolar medication. My question is, why are these ever looked at differently? I think heart medication and brain medication should be equally respected. And that's one of the key takeaways today is like, if you're diabetic, like our friend Caleb from Broncos, you have to take insulin to regulate your body. I have to take Abilify and Wellbutrin to regulate my brain chemistry. Okay. And I think it should be respected the same for sure. And that's kind of the stigma that we all have a part to play in. So getting out of depression, medication wasn't the only thing. The psychological interventions from my psychologist was what really helped. And this is kind of the optimistic part of the presentation and the octagon of life. So what me and my psychologist came up with was 8 areas of life to focus on for holistic recovery and fulfillment. And it's all about following experts. And there's 8 areas that I'm only gonna, for the sake of time, share 2 of them today, because I think they're the most useful for you, and they kind of lend into our assignment once we get back from the break with me. But those are the 8. So exercise and nutrition, and they all blend together. Exercise and nutrition are really important when someone is mentally ill or not mentally ill. They blend together. Exposure therapy, which I'll go into detail, which was something I kind of mentioned at the start of the presentation. Cognitive therapy, and then relationships, whether that's with a significant other or with friends and family, you need that support. You need to figure out your career, your job, so you don't have stress in that bugging you out. And then finances, understanding investments and saving and not being stressed about that. And then mental health balance, which is, for me, medication, but for you may be self-care and understanding that you need to take breaks and all those things. So the next slide here will be too far, exposure therapy explanation of this. So exposure therapy, I've got a shelf there because it's the opposite of shelving. If you've ever heard of the thing called man up and shove it under the rug, or put it on the shelf, or don't think about it, like just get over it. Well, if you're going to get over it, you can't put it on the shelf. You can't sweep it under the rug because the shelf gets rickety and the rug gets clumpy and you trip and you fall and then you break your neck and now you're in the hospital again. So essentially what exposure therapy is facing your fears head on, your trauma head on, and in a controlled way. So how I did this was I had trauma from being manic, being in the hospital. And what I did was I looked over these journals that I wrote, like August 10th, 2017. Keep plugging away in the karma pool. You will accomplish all you want to be in life because you are superhuman. You and Finn and Stacy and Tony and Tim Ferriss, etc., are top of the 1%. You have tons to give, and then I go on. So as you can see, like my sketch, like it's highly scribbled and all these things. And I looked at these artifacts and all the things from my episode, and I listened to the audiobooks, and I just exposed myself, flooded myself with all the emotions. I cried, I was angry, I was ashamed, I did it all. And what I did was I did exposure therapy for an hour a day until I felt better. And it took about 10 days until I started to feel okay about it. And that's when I came out with my story and did an Instagram post and told people, like, I'm bipolar, I'm not ashamed of it, I'm working on getting better and all these things. And now it's been kind of positive. I've turned it into something that happened to me and made it something that happens for me. So that was kind of the key distinction there. And with exposure therapy, it's not easy. It's very hard. When you're facing your trauma head on, it's hard and it's not easy. But if you get rid of all your triggers in life, then you can go on with your day and not be walking on eggshells. So that leads to the next one. After exposure therapy, you do cognitive therapy. And what cognitive therapy is it's those limiting thoughts. And I have an example, a high school example that I'm going to share with you. But it's the limiting thoughts, the cognitive distortions that keep you from where you want to be. And how you do cognitive therapy is through multiple ways, but I like journaling or just sitting and thinking about it. But here's basically the breakdown of cognitive therapy. So there's an event, which I'll outline, that causes a B, thought or cognitive distortion, which gives you a C, feeling. And then you have to dispute those thoughts or cognitive distortions to arrive at a new E, feeling. New rational feeling. So the example I'll give you here, this happened to me, romantic breakup, first girlfriend, really tragic. She moved away, boohoo me. But, breakups can be hard and they can be traumatic and you can really have some poor thoughts about it. So that's the event. You can have thoughts like, I'm no good, I'll be forever alone, okay? Which is catastrophizing and personalizing. You're over exaggerating, you're hyperbolizing, catastrophizing your issues. And how you dispute this, and then you arrive at this depressed or sad feeling, I believe is what I put on the slide. Sad or depressed feeling. Sorry. Sad, depressed. Poor little Mickey. Minnie broke up with him. Okay, sorry. Tech. Oh, good. Missed a slide. And okay, so then you dispute your distortions. And how you do this is you can sit and think silently, just meditate on these thoughts and like, okay, I'm not no good. I am good. I will meet someone else. I've got a plan for it. Or you can journal, challenge the validity of these distortions, and arrive that you can learn from this. So again, you can do this in a controlled way of writing things out. I like to do maybe like a mind map where you write out like the thought and then like webs around it to explain that it's false and you can learn from it. Okay. I will find somebody. And then you start feeling better, okay? And that is cognitive therapy and exposure therapy in a nutshell. It helps you be ready to move on. And I did both of these to get over my trauma and become comfortable enough to give this presentation to you and to multiple people and do a project, which I will explain later. So this resulted in post-traumatic growth for myself. I went from doing like way too much, overextending myself, ending up in the hospital and becoming overweight to eventually losing all the weight. I lost like 60 pounds in 6 months. I have no emotional baggage anymore, no limiting thoughts. I have no debt. I paid off all my Manic debt. I have clear relationship criteria, which is a conversation for another time, but I know what I want in a relationship, still single, but looking for it. And I've had 5 A 4.0 semesters since we started this process. So that's really good. I love my job and career choice. I love being up here and talking to you folks. And I give presentations. I gave a presentation to all the PS2 students last year as a keynote speaker on how to perform in practicum and, you know, deal with your emotional trauma. I gave this same presentation to over 100 students at Winston Churchill about a month ago. I've given it to the 20s, and I've given this presentation to multiple sections of the Masters of Psychology students at the University of Lethbridge, and then also most recently to over 150 teachers at the Teachers Convention. I gave this same presentation. And the thing I'm most proud about is that I wrote a book about this entire thing, and it will be in people's hands in October with Cherish editions. And I haven't really announced this yet, but it's pretty much a done deal. I've signed with them, and it'll be published copies in local bookstores. Miss Murray will have a copy, and it'll be on Amazon as well. It's called Manic Man, How to Live Successfully with a Severe Mental Illness, a memoir. And I am really proud about the process. It took me essentially 6 months and a lot of work to get to this point of working with Cherish. And I'm really excited about the project. And who knows, maybe even Manic Man the movie one day. We'll see for that. But yeah, I wrote the book, and it took a lot of thinking and planning. The second guy is my doctor, Dr. Kerry Burness. He helped me write it, so he's on there as well. And yeah, I'm really, really excited about the book for sure, and I hope you read it someday. And on this next slide, there we go. Elf the Musical. So I'll tell you one final story that I was in my PS1. I don't know how this relates, but it does. I was in PS1, and I'm with grade 4s. This is Medicine Hat. And we go to Elf the Musical, put on by the high school at Medicine Hat High School. And within the first lines, I'm super excited because I like Elf the Musical. Like, cool, Elf's a great story. And the musical will be even better. And what happened was, within the first few lines, they're making mental health jokes. And I thought it was really off color, and I tried to shake it off. But the first joke was like, it was a song, and they're like, and he's bipolar, and he's crazy all the time. Da, 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 da. Still remember the song. And it just drove me nuts. And I was just like, are you kidding me? Like, high school students are perpetuating mental health stigma to fourth graders? Like, this is offside. And then I tried to shrug it off and try to enjoy the show. But then later in the show, they're making fun of Buddy the Elf, and they say, like, geez, Buddy over there, is he off his meds? And as someone who takes medication every day for their mental illness, I really didn't appreciate that comment. And what I did afterwards was, my teacher, she could tell I was kind of distraught about it, and asked what was wrong. I said, well, it was these offside mental health jokes. Like, I've told you my story. I'm pretty passionate about advocacy for mental illness and mental health. And she said, well, why don't you write a letter? So what I did was I wrote a letter to the production, to the drama teacher who put it on, and explained like the harmful stigma and how I didn't appreciate it and all these things. And I tried to combat the stigma that day, and it worked. He changed the play that night and had a conversation with the students about it. He apologized. He said it's not their original play. It was from Broadway. It was an overlooked statement, but that they'll keep a mental health focus on that now. So I say that because words matter, and we all play a role in combating stigma. So we arrive at the last slide here, 10 key understandings that I hope you took away from this presentation. One, mental illness is super common. This could happen to anybody. There was no signs that this would happen to me other than my uncle who had it. And there is Jason that has mental illness, super common, severe one. And depression and anxiety, of course, are the most common two. Bipolar, I think approximately 1/5 of Americans, so probably extrapolate that to Canada, have this mental illness. Schizophrenia is a big one, borderline personality disorder, there's tons. So mental illness is not something to be ashamed of. It's something that's common and a lot of people will deal with or know someone who's dealing with it. And then that previous slide, I said we all need to combat the stigma. And, Bell Let's Talk Day is great, but I mean, it should be more than one day, in my opinion. I hope you can see what bipolar 1 and depression can look like. Hope you have those memories of those clips that I showed you, and I hope you can see those signs and potentially help somebody who's in that situation. Patience in recovery. It took me 6 months to write the book, but like a year to recover before I was ready to write the book. I wrote it in 2019, and I've been trying to get this deal for the last 1.5 years, 2 years, and patience in recovery is huge. So if you struggle with mental illness or someone that does, they just have to be patient, especially when it comes to medication and everything else. Okay. Medication must be respected. Please follow experts' advice, whether it's psychiatrists or psychologists, trainers when it comes to exercise and nutrition. Like, find someone that's good with their money or good with relationships, follow them, follow the experts. We need a holistic approach to recovery. That's why there's 8 steps of that octagon of life. Okay. And I hope I've qualified for you or shown that it's okay to have a mental illness, that it's common, you can overcome it, and you can still do great things, which I aim to do in my future. Be vulnerable and open the dialogue. This is a conversation that should be ongoing. And by being vulnerable, you kind of not only expose the trauma to yourself, but you help heal yourself and others by being vulnerable and opening that dialogue. And lastly, if you are unsure, seek help. On the next slide, I've got the mental health line, which is a great resource. I had a friend who was suicidal in the fall, and I contacted them, and they kind of coached me through helping him that night. And thankfully, he's still here, and he's doing well. But if you're unsure, seek help with yourself, with your friends. Like, don't bottle it up. That's a big message for me. And at this point, I will just ask, give you a time to just reflect on this. If there's anything I can expand on for you, that's the mental health line. And there's my email for those Zoomers. So if you have questions on Zoomland, put them in the chat and we can see that pop up here. And I guess I'll just throw it to the floor here, the live audience, if there are any questions or things to comment on. Teacher wait time. Marissa.
So, for other people helping you, what help? What did they do to help you? What did they do that maybe they were trying to help, but it doesn't?
Yeah. So the question is, what did other people do to help me while I was in depression, and what didn't help? One thing that didn't help was telling me to get over it, because it's like a chemical imbalance in my head, and there's nothing I could really do at that point. And essentially what was really helpful was just, my parents and my sister and my family just saying that they love me every day, giving me hugs and just embracing me, and showing love, I guess, would be the number one thing. And also just understanding that it's you're feeling low today, it's okay. We'll get through this. That is kind of what was most helpful, was just being there, and then having the support once I came out with my story of people kind of saying good job. I know someone who has mental illness. Thank you for sharing your story. I had someone at the teachers convention that said, you sharing your story helped me come to terms with my mother, who was bipolar and committed suicide. So you never know the impact you have on people, but being open about things and opening the dialogue is pretty crucial, which is helpful. So other questions or comments? Heavy stuff, eh? Walk into Wednesday and this is what you get. Okay. Okay. Brady.
What kind of grandiose ideas like did you get?
Yeah, many. Like I listed off all those goals I had, like all those things I wanted to do within 10 years was pretty outlandish. Like I don't think Pink Floyd is a huge hit band in Tanzania, Africa, of all places. And getting one PhD is hard. Getting two within a decade is extremely hard. Writing a novel and starting two charities like can be done, but all of it within 10 years was the stretch. And other grandiose ideas I had were like that I'm better than other people, that I'm, superhuman, I'm on another level. And that's kind of where the grandiosity set in. And then thinking in the hospital when I was really sick, I thought there was a storm that was happening outside at one point. And I thought like, man, I am the son of the divine one. I am having a bad day and that's why it's stormy outside. So I was losing my mind at this point, and I was very, very grandiose in many senses, which is just grandiosity is just outlandish thoughts and thinking that you can basically do anything. So that's how to answer that. Yeah. Other questions, comments? Take a breath, everybody. Yeah. Okay. Give you another 20 seconds. That's the teacher wait time. Hey.
Okay, I have a question. I feel like it's super personal when people have mental health, especially when you how do you reach out to people and try to help them without interfering with them? I don't know, without being too much or something.
Yeah.
I don't know how to do that without overstepping.
Yeah. So the question is how do you not overstep someone's boundaries when it comes to mental health? Help with them. Yeah. Well, I went to a suicide prevention workshop before I came here to the PS2, and they said the number one prevention for suicide is asking someone, are you suicidal? Asking them point blank, super vulnerable, and then them responding to you. That is pretty stepping boundaries, you would think, but that's the number one strategy for preventing it. When it comes to other mental health issues like depression, I think just daily check-ins how you doing? I'm okay. How are you doing though? Well, let me tell you, So I think kind of not prying, but prompting, if that makes sense, would be the most effective way. But when it comes to the serious ones like suicide, that's they told us that suicide prevention hotline, that's the number one strategy for preventing it, is just making someone call it out to existence, whether I am or I'm not. So I hope that answers your question. Bronlyn.
And medication is something someone needs to take their entire life, or is it something that they, or comes up?
Yeah, so the question is medication something I'll take for the rest of my life, or is it something I can wean off? Currently, I've been taking the same medication for over a year, and my doctor, psychiatrist, said that we can eventually wean you off it, but I have no desire to change it because I don't want to change how I'm feeling at all. But he said eventually we can wean you off because you're not in depression anymore. You don't need the antidepressant. So eventually one day I could go without medication. And he said, the longer I go without a manic episode, the greater chance I have of never having another one. And the number one thing that could trigger a manic episode is marijuana, first off, any kind of drugs. So that's something that's completely off the table for the rest of my life, which I'm totally okay with. And then 2, stress, 3, sleep. and 4, well, probably 2 would be medication, then sleep, then stress. So those 4 things would be the key triggers of another manic episode. The problem with a lot of people do is once they get out of depression, they're feeling good, they stop taking their meds, and they wonder why they're back in depression again. It's the medication that's keeping you out of it. So to say that I may have to take medication for the rest of my life, for me, big deal. A couple pills in the morning, swallow. My dad has to take like 3 different types of medications at 3 different times for his heart condition. So, and diabetes, like read Caleb Dahlgreen's book. Like he talks about how much of a struggle diabetes is with the pokes and the prods and the constant monitoring and insulin intake. So yeah, for me, medication is not something that I hate taking. It's not painful, and it's something that I'm fine with if I have to take for the rest of my life. But eventually, we may wean myself off in a few years, maybe. So, does that answer your question? Okay. Any others? It's a great Q&A. Yeah, Marissa.
How far do you think the individual could go in helping themselves with mentally without the medication?
Yeah, so the question is, how far can one go without the medication seeking help, right?
Yeah, you did all the mental exercises.
Yeah. You did everything and everything without the medication. So what I'll tell you here is that medication will get you to baseline. Medication will get you to neutral and back to like normal. But everything of life is what will make your life extraordinary. If you take out the health balance, for me, medication, which is number 8 on that list, then the wheels fall off. So for me, I could do all those things. I could exercise and eat good and do therapy and all these things. If I wasn't taking my medication, I could cycle back into mania. So for to tackle it without medication would be an extreme challenge, and I may not make it. For someone with a severe mental illness like myself, without medication, it may not be possible to get to neutral with all these other interventions without the medication. Does that make sense? Yeah. And same with depression. Like, you know, you can exercise and get sunlight, but if it's a chemical imbalance in your brain, you need a medication. Like, it's that simple. And medications come a far way. But like I said, it took 22 med changes and adjustments. And it's like throwing darts at a dartboard that keeps moving. But finally, we hit the bullseye at 22, and I've been on it since. So, great question. Anyone else? You just scroll to the top to see if we have any Zoom questions. Nope. Okay, good. Marissa. Yeah, it's some kind of neurotransmitter sciencey thing that's way over my head. Yeah. What's that? Oh, in my head. Yeah. Nice. Something in my head. Yeah. I'm not sure what the specific chemical neurological imbalance is, but it's something for sure. But that would have to be a question for the psychiatrist that would know. Yeah. But I did do a CT scan and like MRI scan or whatever, and I was in that little bubble in that little like coffin, and they scanned my brain to see if there was anything like super abnormal. And I can't remember if they said they could see that I had a mental illness, but I think they were just checking to see if there was any like neurological damage to explain my behavior. And I don't think there was, but I can't recall for sure.
When you were referring to different medications, how long were you on one before they switched to another?
About 2 to 3 weeks. So it was like 2 to 3 weeks, not working, 2 to 3 weeks, not working, 2 to 3 weeks. Good energy, but my jaw's chattering like this. Okay, off that one, 2 to 3 weeks. Now I've got great energy, but I'm completely emotionally blunt. That was another symptom where I was just neutral. I was like a zombie, not cool. Another 2 to 3 weeks, tried a different one. Nope, another 2 to 3 weeks, finally got it, or whatever that timeline was. So about 2 to 3 weeks before we swapped up, because it takes about 14 days to get in your system to see if it's working. But monitoring it with my doctors was really important, and staying on top of it was crucial, and being honest with the doctors and the experts. Any others? Almost at flex. Brady.
When you were manic with us, did you still feel like you
Yeah, so the question was, when I was manic or depressed, I still feel like me. Manic, I felt like I was me on a whole nother level. Supercharged, superhuman, super Jason. And when I was depressed, I didn't feel like myself because I was down and I was low, and I was wondering if I'd ever get back to where I was. And then, the medication started to kick in, and I asked myself a better question. Instead of asking myself, why is this happening to me? Why was I given this card? Why was I dealt this? Why am I bipolar? Why? And I heard this Tony Robbins quote. He's like, as soon as you turn that from why is this happening to me to something to why is this happening for me, your life changes. And I asked that question. I remember I was walking in my vehicle and I looked up at the stars and I said, why is this happening for me? How can I make this purpose? And how can I make this work for me and make my life better? And that's when my mindset kind of changed. And I, made the posts on Instagram about my mental illness, and people started to pour in support. And then I wrote the book, and now I give presentations. So now I've made my illness something that's positive and something that I can connect with people on a whole nother level. And I feel more myself today than I did in 2016, 2015, ever in my life. I feel more myself today than ever. But during depression, no, I felt like I was lost, essentially, until I asked that better question and started to get the medication to kick in. Yeah. Any final ones? Micah. Yeah, Green Shirt Day is April 7th, so next week, April 7th. It's a day after the tragedy. The tragedy happened on April 6th, and Logan passed away April 7th. So it honors his day. Bronwyn. The Humboldt Bronco crash. So the Humboldt Broncos were a Saskatchewan hockey team, and they were on their way to play a game in, I think, Nipawin or something like that, another Saskatchewan small town. And they're all on the bus ready for a playoff game, and a semi absolutely destroys them. And the bus completely in tatters and shatters, and bodies were lined up on the side of the road with white blankets over top of them for all that passed away. And Logan, he was a fighter, and he tried to survive, and he kind of made it through the night, but then passed away the next day with his heart still ticking. And he was an organ donor. His heart was still good, so they took his heart and gave it to someone in need, and he saved 3 lives that day. So, yeah, hard to talk about, but if you look that one up, there's documentaries. PSN did a big thing on it. Caleb's book details it in detail, but that was the national tragedy heard around the world. So that was the Humboldt Bronco crash a few years ago. Any other comments or thoughts? Yeah, Ashlyn.
If you could go back and do it all over again, would you change anything?
I mean, I probably wouldn't do acid again because that was pretty horrible. But butterfly effect, if you change one thing, then would everything change? And I'm kind of thankful that I was so sick that it was so obvious to the doctors in ER and the psychologists that I needed help. So if I was to change anything, maybe I'd still be cycling. Maybe I'd be in Germany right now writing my novel and lost all my money because I was planning on screwing off from North America and going to Germany to visit some relatives. So who knows where I'd be up. So I can't really comment on would I change anything. I mean, there's things I would never do again. But, I mean, I truly believe everything happens for a reason and a purpose. And sometimes it's hard to find that purpose, but at the end of the tunnel, it's usually there's something there. So I think Caleb and Logan have shown that there can be some solace in tragedy and trauma. Any final thoughts, questions? It's great. Okay, that's it then. Flex is your time. We'll end this call, and good luck on your Othello test tomorrow. Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, I believe you have flex time to write that as well. So don't stress about the time, and we will go from there. So if you have extra follow-up comments or want to talk to me privately, then by all means. And you all have my email, so follow up if you want. And I'll definitely be plugging my book once it comes out. So buy a book. All right. Okay. Thanks for listening, everybody.